Hi guys, thanks for joining me for another video. As promised, this is a Sennelier gouache review and demo. As you may know, I picked up these paints when I was in France a couple of months ago. This was the first time I had actually tried them, and to be honest, I didn't know much about them. They don't seem to sell them in the general stores here. I think they're pretty, specialty items. You'd have to go to pretty fancy art stores to pick them up. Now, my very first experience with them was quite interesting. As you can see, I'm trying to lay out the paint, and some of the tubes were quite solid and others were very gloopy, so the medium and the pigment had separated in some tubes. Now this is completely fine. It happens in water paint or oil tubes, and it doesn't matter so much. It just means that the tube hadn't been stored properly. But that was really just the first of many little issues that I had with that type of paint. So up until now, the majority of my gouache pieces had been done with Winsor & Newton designer gouache, which I think many of you would be familiar with. This was quite different to that. Now, you'll see that in its initial washes, it's sort of grainy. It's not too bad, but I think the majority of my problems with this gouache is that it darkens significantly after laying down. Now, of course, all gouache changes hue slightly. Some pigments get a bit lighter, others get a bit darker. But with Sennelier, I just felt that the change was rather significant, and it was also a bit streaky. You could probably see it now as I laid down this sort of almost buff titanium sort of shade. It needed a significant amount of pigment to come out thick enough for me to use. But because I was used to using Winsor & Newton, which is pretty opaque even when it's diluted down with water, I think I just couldn't seem to adapt quickly enough. And this was my first time trying it out, so I'm sure, if I continue to paint with it, I'll be able to get the hang of it. So yeah, this painting was actually quite difficult, I have to admit. We did edit the video so that it wasn't an hour long, but I found myself constantly going over the same areas over and over again because the paint just wasn't drying in a hue that I was expecting. And because after I laid down the paint, it just wasn't blending smoothly enough. You can sort of see the brush strokes there. I think part of the reason isn't the paint's fault. I do live in Sydney, and it's been incredibly dry, and the paint is drying almost quicker than you could even understand. This is getting into like egg tempera level of quick drying. As soon as you put down a stroke, it's done, it's dry. And then it just changes color in front of your eyes, and then you have to basically go back, mix it, add some more to it. So yeah, I don't blame the paint completely. I think the climate definitely had something to do with this. Now, my style of painting is to put down an initial underlayer, a wetter layer, and then slowly work my way up to a thickness that I desire. Generally speaking, I want a sort of middle ground between blended strokes and then obvious strokes. So my favorite part of the painting was actually coming in and adding the details. I especially liked that the bottom part of the page when I started laying down some darker pigment. I just have to keep in mind the contrast and the importance of contrast and the importance of values. And up until this point, the painting had been sort of between quite light and then a medium value level, and it needed that push, it needed that darkness at the bottom to draw out the lighter paint. So you can see the painting slowly coming together, and this is why it's very important for all artists to not give in too early in the painting. The ugly duckling stage definitely exists, definitely a thing, and many of us, even while knowing this, tend to get that feeling of nah, this is just not working, this is a waste of time, I'm going to give up now. So intellectually, a lot of the times I know that my painting at some stage is just going to look absolutely horrible, but whether I persevere with it or not, I guess the more you paint, the more you know whether you may be able to turn something around or whether it's something that's just not worth continuing with and that you may as well just throw out. So in this case, as I added the darker colors, it sort of started coming together, and as I added more details, there was a bit more cohesion. I did want to bring to your attention, just as you see me lay down these sort of lighter grassy strokes, just how quickly they darken. You could just see them as I lay down the strokes. Initially they're a bit lighter, and then in front of my eyes they just darken significantly. So I think for me that really was the main issue with these paints. The thing is, it's just a matter of learning them. If these are your paints of choice, it's just a matter of knowing what to expect. But if you're using multiple brands, this sort of shift might be a bit confusing, and you may have to do a couple of practice paintings before you really get the hang of them. So this is it. I hope you enjoyed watching me put this little demo together for you. I did promise you that I will make a video of the egg tempera trial if I do go ahead with it, and I will most likely do that over the Christmas holidays. Do feel free to go and watch the materials I bought in Europe video and see if there are any of the materials there that you'd like to see me demo. Until then, thanks so much for your support. Please like and subscribe, and just let us know what you'd like to see. Thank you very much from me and Myra, and we hope to see you again very soon in another video.